Good afternoon. I would like to call this meeting of the Oldham County Board of Education to order. It's May 18th, 2020, and we are virtual and live streaming. Mr. Kehoe, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Kehoe. So our first item of business is to approve the agenda. Superintendent, do you have any corrections or additions, sir?
Actually, I have a subtraction. If we could subtract action item K, consider approval of stipends for extra and co-curricular versus percentage from this agenda, and we can look at that next year.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So board members, with that correction to the agenda, may I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
This is Larry Dodson. I'll make first.
Motion made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by
Pat Kehoe.
Mr. Kehoe. All those in favor? Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
Miss Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher. That makes 5-0. Thank you all. Miss Anderson, we are ready for the treasurer's report, ma'am.
So once again, you received the treasury reports earlier, and because of the link, that we'd ask that if you had any questions, now would be a time for Ms. Anderson to answer any of those questions.
Excellent. Board members, do you have any questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for providing the treasurer's report. May I have a motion to approve? May I have a motion to approve, please?
It's Kevin, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Woosley, seconded by
Ms. Hundley. I'll
Ms.
second.
Hundley. Thank you. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
Ms. Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher. That's 5-0. Thank you all. We are ready now, Superintendent, for bills and claims.
So once again, Ms. Anderson submitted the bills and claims, and you've had a chance to review those in your agenda. If you have any questions, she is here to answer any of those.
Anything?
I do have a question.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
I do have a question by email from Mr. Kehoe, and I will get back to you all on that.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. No hurry. I just the explanation was cut off, and I was trying to understand where it was going to.
Sure.
Is there anything you need to call our attention to, Ms. Anderson?
No, you probably did notice, though, that the count on the bills and claims is down even farther from the prior month. So that is again expected. But you were hoping to see a reduction, and we are seeing a reduction.
Yeah, we're not surprised. So any other questions or comments, board members? All right. I need a motion to approve bills and claims, please.
Make a motion, Larry Dodson.
Motion made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by
Pat Kehoe.
Mr. Kehoe. Thank you. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
and Ms. Hundley.
Yes.
And Fletcher makes 5-0. Thank you all. So we have one set of minutes to approve, board members, and those are the minutes from the last regularly called board meeting from April 27th. We were all present. Any corrections or additions? Motion to approve the minutes, please.
It's Kevin, I'll make a motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Woosley and seconded by
Larry Dodson.
Mr. Dodson. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
and Ms. Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher. That's 5-0. Thanks, guys. Superintendent, we're ready already for the personnel action report, sir.
So I guess the only thing I really want to draw attention to is at the top, the non-renewal and suspension of contracts. Obviously, with the extensions of the summer of the COVID crisis and not being able to necessarily have summer childcare, which funds a lot of extra positions at the elementary level. We've had to let people, or principals have just told people that I'm sorry, but we can't guarantee employment next year until this comes to a resolution. And so that list of non-renewal and suspensions is a little bit heavier than normal for that reason. It's a funding issue more than anything else that we hope we're maybe able to open up later, or at least address that at a later time. Beyond that, you also see this is the bulk of the retirements for this year. These folks, some of these folks I've known for 30 years, which is always very interesting to see when people leave the company. And then obviously resignations. This is the time of year when people are starting to switch jobs, whether they're going to a different county or just going to a different profession or whatever the case may be. So as guaranteed, this month is a little bit heavier. Next month, you'll start seeing a lot more in the appointment category as we start to rehire for the next school year.
Thank you, Superintendent. There are a lot of old friends on this retirement list. As you said, I'm struck by how many of these folks have really worked for a long time in the district. Questions or comments, board members?
Ms. Fletcher, I do just have one comment. There was a correction that I've already communicated with Mr. Schultz on under the retirement. Those first two, Kevin and Missy Cox, those are both effective June 1st instead of July 1st. And Mr. Schultz is going to be taking care of those.
Oh,
Yes, the paperwork is correct downstairs, which is the most important thing for the state. But we did have just a clerical typing error on that one.
excellent. Thank you. All right, we will move along. Thank you, Superintendent. We have a consent agenda that has items A through F. Your recommendation, Superintendent?
Approve all consent items as presented with the materials in your packet.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Pat Kehoe approved.
So move, Kevin.
Motion made by Mr. Kehoe. Did somebody second it?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Second was made by Ms. Hundley. So all in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
Ms. Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher makes 5-0. Thank you, guys. Superintendent report number 1, sir.
Up first is Mr. Brent Bohannon, the hardest working facility director that we have right now. So Mr. Bohannon, if you'd like to give him an update.
Wow. Welcome, Mr. Bohannon. On that high note,
Thank you. Nice to be here virtually.
you're doing some COVID-19 grow out, Mr. Bohannon.
That's right. There's some quarantine stuff going on right there. If you look in your packet there, we have a construction update that includes all of the major projects that are under construction at this point, and some pictures as well to accompany that, along with the kind of anticipated schedule for completion of those major projects, and also the minor projects that we have going on around the district as well. If there's any particular questions, I can address any that are going on right now, or any questions that you might have about what's coming up.
Board members, do you have some questions for Mr. Bohannon? They are strong but silent today. Has the Ann Corson marquee gone up outside the central office building yet?
The memorial sign.
Yes.
Shop drawings have been approved on that, and it is on its way.
Yes.
I did see Mr. Bohannon out in the parking lot, though, waving his arms over his head like one of those blow-up dolls the other day. So we're getting ready for the premiere. It's really going to be great.
It's really going to be great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Bohannon. Thank you,
Thank you all.
Superintendent. Report number 2, please.
So we have Ms. Corson with us tonight, and she has some draft policy revisions.
Yes, she does. I think she has a draft policy.
You are
Yes,
correct.
just one for this month. This has to do with a change in the law regarding children of military families. This was passed in the 2020 legislative session, so we had to just modify our policy slightly to accommodate some of these families.
Right. And I'm glad of it. So do you have any questions at this time, board members, for Ms. Corson? We'll take action on this policy change next month then. Thank you. We are moving on. Superintendent to report number 3, sir.
So finishing up the second to last month of my ILP submission for this year, covering standard 1 strategic leadership with several different demonstrators. One is demonstrating or determining financial priorities. You'll see you'll be acting on a tentative budget later tonight that myself and Ms. Anderson has been working on diligently. We also standard 2 instructional leadership demonstrates awareness of all aspects of the instructional programming. I've been in the weeds a lot this second semester with the instructional programming, which is never a bad thing. And I think I've always had a pretty good handle on that, and probably even a better handle now. Standard 3, cultural leadership, with the demonstrator being creates a unified school system. NTI really gave us a lot of opportunities to create some unity within the district to make sure that we were all marching forward to the same music, and that's gone relatively well, although I know it's been trying for everyone involved. Standard 4, human resource leadership, uses data to create and maintain a positive work environment. Last month, I do believe, or it could have been a meeting in between here and last month, we talked about the MAG study and the processes around that study. And so we will use data to make salary adjustments where needed over a course of time. We're still working on that process, the actual implementation. And then standard 5, managerial leadership, once again, referring to the budget, where it prepares and oversees a budget that aligns resources with the district vision and needs. So once again, that ILP is there for you to take a look at. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, sir. So by way of a quick review, for all board members, there are actually 7 standards. This is a document that has actually been prepared and given to us by the state. And we've used it now for, is this just the second year or the third year?
Oh, no, it's the 4th.
For us?
It's the 4th.
Where did that time go? All right,
Fine.
we're in our 4th year of using this document. And so under each standard, there are several demonstrators that the superintendent is providing evidence for us on. We can get to the point after this evaluation if we want to just focus on a couple of standards for him. So we can talk about that after we go through this evaluation cycle. Sound good?
Yes, there's always more.
Yeah. Any questions? All right. We appreciate that. Thank you, Superintendent.
More than welcome.
We are ready now for action item H, sir.
Last month, Ms. Corson presented a litany of policy changes, and this month they come up for action. So she is in the crowd if you have any questions.
Right. Any questions or comments? So your recommendation, sir?
Approve the aforementioned policy revisions as presented.
Thank you. Motion to approve action item H.
I will, Larry Dodson.
Motion made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by,
Kevin,
I'll second.
okay, Ms. Hunley. Thank you. You got it. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
and Ms. Hunley.
Yes.
And Fletcher makes 5-0. Thank you all. Action item I, sir.
So I'm actually having Ms. Anderson walk us through the proposal for the tentative budget. So Ms. Anderson, if you would take that over.
All righty.
Welcome back.
Yes, hello. This is the time of year at the end of May where we need to present the tentative budget to the Kentucky Department of Education per KRS 160.470. We are required to have a 2% contingency, so we are fine there. This has been a bit of a challenge as a budgeting year because the state has decided to calculate SEEK a little bit differently this year. So while we based it on fiscal 20 revenues for the SEEK and the general property taxes, we are taking a slightly different view this time. We do have an increase in the general property tax revenue of about $2.7 million due to increased preliminary property value assessments. We are assuming no rate increase this year. This is a slightly lower increase in the assessment over a prior year, which is a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is. The second item on here talks about the SEEK funding, and this is the part where they have changed, and rather than us giving the state an estimate, they are taking actual numbers from fiscal 19. We will get a growth factor, but how all this plays out in the SEEK formulas is going to be something I need to continue to work on. We have put in a dollar amount showing a decrease of $1.8 million. In part, that is because putting in the new AADA reduces our ADA, and with the increase in the property tax revenues, that also takes away from our SEEK, as we have seen in the last couple of years. So the net between those is still an increase, but it is a pretty small increase overall. I am hoping for a public service franchise tax, not hoping for a decrease, but it looks like that's the way that it will be running. And I also expect to see a utilities tax increase just slightly. Again, the fiscal 21 budget expenditures have been forecast based on fiscal 20 actual expenditures so far, and they do include the following adjustments. For compensation and fringes, we have an increase of $1.2 million due to salary step increases and related fringes and tax increases. We do have a flat CERS retirement percentage this year. Originally, it was slated to go up 12%, and the state has reversed that, so we're going to stay flat to what we are this year, and that saves us over $400,000. When next year comes along, based on current legislation, they cannot double that. There is a cap of 12%. So it helps us for this one particular year. In facilities and maintenance, we're seeing a $579,000 increase for projects, repairs, and equipment. As our stuff continues to age and we try to get a better handle on that, it does cost us a bit of money. We have new capital costs this year for our new art center, and that is estimated at $348,000. And we are also expecting new hires in mental health and Gates, and I believe that's about 4.7 FTEs, and that'll be $328,000. We also did quite a bit of hiring in the last year, and so as we add in the full salaries for the upcoming year, for the current hires, we have an increase of $261,000, and that would be in maintenance therapies like physical and occupational speech therapy, English language, and in IT. So this being the unique year that it is, we will continue to monitor expenses. We're not entirely sure exactly how revenues from the state and our expenditures will play out. We're hearing that we may get some sources of funds from either the feds or the state, but haven't really figured out the details of what that's going to be at this point, or what we'll be able to use it on, and if we'll be able to take advantage of all of the money that's going to be available. We also have not included MAG study salary increases, which are about $700,000. So that is another area that we will consider, as well as looking to see if we do need to cut expenses, especially in some areas like bus where it is very expensive. We're not entirely sure, of course, how our fall reopening plans will be. And the biggest impact on that from an income standpoint comes from the daycares. So we have requested that both the daycares and the principals at the elementary schools be very conservative in their budget and in their hiring, because the profits from daycare are often used to buy those extra teachers that they need for special needs. So we're hoping that we get that turnaround in revenue again, but again, we're not for certain on any of that. The next section shows the revenues for each of the general funds, and there's also an inclusion of our debt service for this year, which is pretty similar to last year. So we will continue to look through this. Our next working budget will be due on September 30th, so we have a few months yet to refine this budget. But at this point, our recommendation is to accept this tentative budget, and we'll continue working on it.
Excellent work. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Questions or comments, board members?
I would just like to state that this is a conservative but aggressive budget. We don't want to go backwards in our services towards students. We've made a commitment when we've done the nurses, when we've done the SROs, and as we started the mental health piece last year, we want to continue out those to make sure that we're providing great services to our kids. Ms. Anderson did say something I want to make sure I clarify. She says special needs. That is not special education. Those are unique teaching slots sometimes at the elementary school that they may not be able to provide this year. That's not a cut in services to anybody in special ed. Just for anybody out there listening, want to make sure that was clear to everyone. We will continue to monitor this. I've had multiple conversations with individual board members that when they hear news from across the state where people are cutting stipends or slashing positions or things of that nature, we've done a nice job maintaining a very healthy budget through our conservative budgeting and spending, and we're going to take care of our people. The number one thing that we've done throughout the COVID crisis with our folks is we made sure that people were able to continue to work and we were able to continue to pay them. And that loyalty will be repaid in tons as we continue to go through this year.
Right. It's an interesting year for developing a tentative budget going forward. So we appreciate everybody's efforts. Were there questions or comments? All right. So your recommendation, Superintendent?
Adopt the fiscal 21 tentative budget as presented and direct the superintendent, which is me, to continue analyzing the budget as the district progresses through the fiscal year 20 year-end closing and make required adjustments as information becomes available.
Excellent. So motion to approve the tentative budget, please.
Kevin,
Becky,
so moved.
approve.
Mr. Woosley made the motion and Mr. Kehoe made the second. Thank you, guys. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
and Ms. Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher makes 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We have one more action item. That's action item J, Superintendent.
So once again, Ms. Anderson has included the information for you, but this is the school budgets for fiscal year 2021. If you have any questions, obviously not going through 19 of those school budgets, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Right, it's lengthy. Are there any questions or comments? All right, we're going to approve it. Ms. Superintendent, your recommendation, sir?
The recommendation is for the board to approve school budgets for fiscal year 2020-21 in the amounts listed in this enclosure. Administrative policy requires the funds must be expended pursuant to the approved budget in a specific code where approved, unless approved in writing by the superintendent for transfer to another fund.
Wow, thank you, sir. Motion to approve, please.
This is Larry Dodson, approve.
Motion made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by
Hundley.
Ms. Hundley. Thank you. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
and Ms. Hundley,
Yes.
and Fletcher makes 5, so that's 5-0. Thank you, everybody. There are 2 information items at the end of this agenda, the monthly district energy usage and the monthly preschool report, if you all will take time to review those. And at this time, the board needs to go into executive session. And that would be, I don't have my enclosure to go into executive session pursuant to KRS.
61.8101C.
Thank you. 1C and 1F. And I don't have the specific items pulled up for that, but they should be included in our agenda. So can I just have a motion to go into executive session, please?
Make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the following matters: 2 litigation matters pertaining to student injuries, 1 litigation matter pertaining to a non-student injury, and 1 special education matter.
Thank you, Mr. Woosley. So Mr. Woosley made the motion. Is there a second, please?
Larry Dodson.
Second was from Mr. Dodson. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
and Ms. Hundley.
Yes.
And Fletcher makes 5-0. Thank you all. We'll move to executive session, please. So the board has just come back from executive session. Is there any action coming out of executive session?
No action.
All right, thank you, Mr. Woosley. So what's your recommendation now, Superintendent?
I recommend that we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Barry Dotson makes a motion.
Excellent, Mr. Dodson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. All those in favor, Mr. Woosley,
Yes.
Mr. Dodson,
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe,
Yes.
and Ms. Hundley.
Yes.
And Fletcher makes 5-0. We're adjourned. Good job.